I'd like to call to order the May 15th, 2017 meeting of the Highland Park Board of Education. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. Linda, could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer? Ms. Cimarusti?
Here.
Ms. Gowan?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Mr. Magaziner?
Here.
Ms. McFadden Nicola? Ms. Pietrobono?
Here.
Ms. Richardson?
Here.
Mr. Roslowitz?
Be it resolved, pursuant to the Sunshine Act NJSA 10-4-12 and 13, the Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss negotiations regarding the Highland Park Education Association contract, HIB reports, a personnel matter, and a personnel matter pertaining to a request. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with NJSA 10-4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I get a motion to convene to closed session?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Convene to public session?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Flags right over there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two communications on the agenda. Linda, I don't think anything else is...
None that have come to my attention.
Okay. So the first thing on our agenda is the approval of minutes for the regular public and executive sessions from April 24th, 2017, and the public hearing, workshop, and executive sessions from May 8th, 2017. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about those? Because we'll adopt them right now, if not. No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? No? Okay, Linda, could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Cimarusti?
Yes?
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden Nicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Ms. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Roslowitz?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to the student representative report. Good evening, ladies.
So at Irving School, the Spirit and Career Day is this Friday, and the plant sale went very well. At Bartle School, the Mother's Day plant sale also went very well. I remember picking up my brother actually, and I saw a whole bunch of students walking away with Mother's Day plants, so that was really, really awesome, seeing in the work that our schools are putting in for the Mother's Day plant sales. The middle school, the 8th grade Irving field trip is this Wednesday, and there is a band assembly this Friday.
The Model UN and Congress Club is hosting Central Jersey Model UN on this Saturday, and community members are welcome to attend the international lunch, where South Cape Redale, Emmanuel Kalinda.
The names are a little bit difficult. Okay. You could just say the first names, actually.
Arnaud and Ashar will be speaking with him and answering questions. The track team did very well at GMCs, and concert choir will be competing at ACDA tomorrow, which is an American Choir Directors Association competition.
Cool. Oh, and also to add, band has a concert this Wednesday, so highly encourage you guys to go and check it out. It's going to be awesome.
Great, thank you very much, ladies. Okay, we'll move on to Dr. Taylor's report.
Okay, I do want to add one more thing. I just got an email from Ms. Faringo, 6th grade history teacher, about her being recognized by character.org, which is a national organization that honors schools and organizations that have exemplary character programs, and her Be the Change project, which those of us who have Highland Park students have gone through the middle school in the last, 6-7 years, know a lot about, was honored as a national exemplary character program. So we'll talk more about that down the road. Speaking of upstanding character, I'd like to introduce Ms. Freeborn, Irving Principal, who is going to talk a little bit about a student we want to highlight tonight. Ms. Freeborn, you have the mic.
Hi, everybody. It's my favorite part of the day. Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce you to George Kalinda. George is new to Irving this year, but has settled in to become a strong Irving dragon. He's in Miss Curtin's kindergarten class, where he stood out for all the right reasons. When I asked his teachers about him, they smiled and gave me the following details about what makes him such a special person. When George walks into the school every morning, his smile leads the way. He is a friend to all. George is also helpful and incredibly kind. If a classmate is sad, he immediately offers a smile and encouragement. If a friend gets hurt, I hear him ask, "Are you okay?" Throughout the day, George can be heard asking, "Do you need help?" to all the teachers and classmates. George never, ever backs away from a challenge. He is a hard worker and is not afraid to make mistakes. He asks great questions, is very curious, and works until he figures something out. He will stick to it until he gets it right, and the pride he feels for his hard work shows on his face. George is a wonderful student who sets a shining example for others to follow. George is a pleasure to have at Irving, and his smile lights up the school every day. Congratulations, George. We are lucky to have you as part of the Highland Park community.
Very sweet.
Yeah, very much. That way when we get photos, we don't have to take photos.
He's got two girls and two boys.
Peterborough never had me show. 6'2.5". I really want a hug.
No, I know, I see. He's wondering who those strange people are. Oh, no, we're not today.
I'll be offended.
Bye, guys. Thanks for coming.
I'm going to be seated for the next part of my presentation because I need to use the keyboard. So, Mr. Marusti, just move over a little bit.
I'll just move.
You're good, Ms. Hoffman. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes updating the board and the community on the status of our strategic plan. I try to do this once a month, if I can. Rather than go over every single action step, I'm just going to give you a very broad overview of where we stand in the implementation of the something like 80 action steps we have across 4 focus areas. You should know that we aligned almost all aspects of our work in the district, from budget planning and implementation to professional development and evaluation to the strategic plan. For instance, this screenshot is actually my superintendent professional development plan for next year. You'll see that the professional learning goals that the board will hold me accountable for attaining or trying to attain come right out of the 4 focus areas of our strategic plan. Here is a screenshot of the draft of next year's professional learning community activities, in which we'll engage all of our staff, teaching staff, for at least 13 after-school meetings. You'll see that Ms. Knapp, who's in charge of the PLC program, is having us gear our PLCs around these goals and action steps. Most of them come right out of the first focus area, which has to do with educational equity. Now, those of us who haven't seen the latest version of these plans should go back on the website, and I'm going to show everyone and our community where they can access this information on the web. So you can see how we're using colors now to determine progress or lack of. Everything you will see in blue shades when you go on the website is an action step that has been fully implemented. Yellow denotes those action steps that we're working through. We're in the throes of implementing them, but we're not going to see them to completion this year. And then anything in red is an action step that just hasn't taken off yet for a variety of reasons. Could be that we just didn't get to it, we didn't have time, the resources, or we didn't place it as high priorities, the other action steps. Overall, this is the layout of our work so far in terms of progress per focus area. So the 4 columns indicate the 4 different focus areas. You see, I'm calling them something a little different than what you're going to see on the web. We're trying to come up with a rebranding of the title, something a little catchier and a little easier to chew on than what we have right now, which is a long. This might change. I'm just throwing this out there for starters. But you'll see that a lot of the work that we haven't begun is in the first focus area, which is also the heaviest focus area when it comes to numbers of action steps. So the 4 strategic planning committees, one for each focus area, that have been meeting with me all year, and then the steering committee, it's a core group of about 10 people, residents who don't send their kids to the schools, members of the board, teachers, me, principals, talked about what we need to put on next year's agenda. And so come July 1, I'm going to update the board, the community, about how the 2017-2018 strategic plan will have been updated to incorporate some of the red shaded action steps that we didn't start yet. So speaking of the web, I strongly encourage everyone to come back to the Pathway website if it's been a while since you were there. I'd like to show you a couple of ins and outs about the site. It's still in the polishing stage. There are things that the steering committee talked about doing to make it even more visually appealing to people. But for now, if you go to the pathway.hpschools.net site, you'll see a quick overview of the process. And then if you click each of these what they call accordion drop-down menus, which will work in just a second, you'll see that we give you more description of what's going on in each of those drop-down. There you go. Focus areas, drop-down areas. Do the same thing for goals. If you click a goal, accordion bar, what'll drop down are all the goals, sub-goals in that focus area. And a little further down, I've included a new section called the Pathway Resources area, and this is where we are putting articles, links to TED videos, or YouTube videos that are pertinent to the work we're doing. I talked about some of the homework research, literature that I've read and some of our leaders have read in one of my Honeywells. You can download the articles I referred to in the Honeywells right here. And if you click these strategies links, you'll be taken directly to the live plan. So what you see here, view only, is, except for me because I'm logged in now, but if you're a visitor from outside, you can only view these live pages. These are being updated regularly, so anyone who comes to the Pathways website and clicks one of these plan links will likely see some changes being made. And then finally at the bottom, I just will be updating the community and the board with any worthy news items, progress we're making. We're looking to change this part of the website right here in the middle, so it's a little more graphically interesting, more dynamic, a little more interactive. That's it for now. Come July, I'll provide another update, and I'll probably drill into some of the work we're going to be doing in 17, 18. Are there any questions from the board or comments? Okay, thank you. Yes.
Do you think we're where we should, I mean, when you looked at this, when we went into it at the beginning of the year, last summer or whatever, Did you feel like we would be kind of where we are at this point, or ahead, or are we ahead of that, or, I mean...
That's a great question.
How do you assess that?
I think we are mostly where I thought we would be, but there are some surprising challenges that I didn't anticipate. For instance, we really, if you go back to my chart, we haven't really done a lot in the areas of focus area 3 and 4. I mean, if you look at focus area 4, which is about experiential learning, you could see, albeit there are only 5 action steps, but the vast majority of them haven't even been started yet. And I was hoping we would have cut into this a little bit more. We're making steady progress as I anticipated in the first focus area, especially with our implementation of things like restorative practices, cultural competency. And I knew we took a lot on, so I warned everybody back in June, all 60 folks who came out over the course of 2 days, that this would have to be a living document. So I kind of knew we were going to be in this place, but I'm a little surprised that we haven't done at least more in the 4th experiential area, focus area, and the 3rd. So I'd say I'm about 70% confident in where we are, but the other 30%'s hanging out there.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Ruth?
Just a quick question for Darcy. When are we doing our board goals?
I think we usually typically do that over the summer, like July-ish. Like
Okay.
once we get Scott's evaluation done, which is a great way to segue into. Don't forget, everybody.
Yeah.
I know Michelle did. She's so good. And I think Ann, did you? I did. Oh, Judy did hers. Ann just grimaced at me. That was like. So if. I kind of asked by today, but
Yes,
so if we can do it definitely this week, it would be really helpful. And then board goals will be next.
Okay.
And we can also, our NJSBA person, who I have not met, we've had a cycle of them over the last couple of years. I have not met our new rep. I asked her to actually sit down and meet in person. So, I mean, one thing we can also do this year is a board self-evaluation, take a look at how we're doing things and evaluate ourselves. So I'll sit down and I'll talk to her about that as well. Because we haven't, I don't remember that ever being done, quite honestly, and it would probably be a good thing to do. So I asked that she and I sit down and meet when she brings me the evaluations. So I'll talk to her about that then and get some input and ideas.
Great.
Did somebody else have a question? No? Okay. All right, so that's it for you, yeah? Yep. Okay, so we will move on to our board committee reports. And just a reminder to everybody at home, this is our voting session, so most of the stuff that's on the agenda we've already gone over and discussed at our workshop meeting last week. So these meetings we tend to go through things a little bit more expeditiously. So we will start off with curriculum and instruction with Michelle.
Sorry. We're sharing a microphone, I apologize.
Oh, wait, why?
Rob Reslovich has two.
Oh, we're all off by one mic?
Shall we just shift them all
Let's
down?
play shift.
Is this like volleyball? We're going to rotate?
Go.
I'm a little nervous about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Musical microphones.
I think we're good.
This is mine.
Oh, that's yours? Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is mine? Oh, no. You're right. It doesn't matter. This is yours. Okay, that was seamless. No one even noticed that. You're going to edit that out, right, Chris?
You didn't just see anything.
Nothing to see here.
Thank you, everyone. All right, item number 1 is the approval of field trip requests. Number 2 is the approval of the HIB incident report. That is for the month of March and April. Number 3 is the approval of English department meeting. Whoops. A half-day meeting for the high school English department to have time with Suzanne Ackley, Supervisor of Curriculum and Instruction of the Humanities. And number 4 is the approval of professional development presenter. Again, just to remind you, this was a presenter that was recommended by several teachers, and his name is Jean-Paul Gonzalez from A Vision in Motion. as the keynote speaker for the PD in service for this coming fall, September 5th, 2017. And that is
Okay, it's a short and tidy curriculum and instruction report. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about any of the curriculum and instruction items? Nope.
We're all very impressed with how short that list took.
All right, then we will move on to finance and facilities with Mark.
Okay, so most of these we went over last time. There's a few new ones I just want to highlight. But first, Linda, I have a question. Item number 19, I just noticed when I went to the bottom of the list to get my numbers. Item 19 has the lists of tuition rates, and they all look comparable, or in some cases slightly higher, except the second from the bottom, autism. Is that a typo, or are we really being forced by the state to lower our rates so much?
Okay, so the tuition rates are, they're based on the state's budget report, but the state tuition rates that they calculate are based upon the number of students that are enrolled in that program on October 15th. And we could have a wide fluctuation in the number of students. So if we have just a few students projected, but then we anticipate we're going to expand the program the following year, the tuition rate could be very high, and that's what happened for 2016-17, is that it didn't correlate. So I suspect that there are a large number of students currently enrolled in an autism program that maybe next year it's being restructured. So
But that rate's correct.
well, it is a calculation based
Yes,
upon those factors.
Okay.
What happens is after the school year is finished, after your audit is completed, the state will then send us a report telling us what our certified tuition rate is. So if we did have a student coming in one of those programs from outside of the district, we would then go back to the district that sent the student and say either we overcharged you and here's a refund, or we didn't charge you enough and they bill us. That's what happens to us on the private school side.
I got it. Okay, thank you. So items 2, 4, and 6 are new. They're just expanded dates for the bill lists. Item number 8 has 2 new lines for two new contractors. Item 10 has 2 new student cases that we're going to vote on for educational services and tuitions associated. And then items 17 and 18 are for roof repairs at the high school. And 19 is the question I had about the tuition rates. So you can see most of the tuition rates are slightly higher, except that one.
That autism one does really kind of
really
stand out.
And the
because
numbers,
that is
14 and 41, I assume that was just a typo, but let's assume it's correct.
Yeah, it's just tied to the number of students that are on that line.
Yes, yes.
But
Very
I mean,
bizarre.
that would, I assume, be pre-K through 12, right? Or is that
No,
in
I
addition
think autism
to
it was only at Irving School. It's the program, not the number of students that
Right.
are classified as autistic.
Oh, so this is just at Irving?
program,
This is if we
right.
had, okay, so this is for the like pre-K disabled? Or
Well,
it's a
no,
separate
because they would be
program?
called preschool disabled. So they would be of kindergarten age or grade 1.
Okay.
So there aren't very many students.
Now that makes
which
more sense.
is why there's such a huge fluctuation.
Okay, that makes more sense then. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions on finance or facilities?
Yeah, just a quick question on 8. James Cardano, the SDA grants consultant. Can you just tell me what that is? What's an SDA?
Yes, Mr. Cardineo has provided these services to the district in the past. He takes care of all of the paperwork, which is voluminous, that cover the many years during which we have a School Development Authority grant. And so he's kind of just wrapping up all the paperwork so that we can get our reimbursements on these grants.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just a quick question about the school lunch prices. Could I just clarify for the public that we're required to raise these prices for lunch, I believe? Susan, Linda? I'm sorry, I wasn't speaking
I'm sorry,
very clearly.
I didn't catch that with the echo.
I was slurring my words. Are those required increases, or are those Highland Park's increases?
No, this National School Lunch Program requires that we maintain what's called parity between the prices that they established at the federal level and when they increase their prices, we need to increase ours to stay in line with theirs.
I see. So these are required increases?
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'd like to add one item to the report, and that is that Ms. Hopeful and I met with our insurance broker today.
Great.
And we talked at length about the need to aggressively shop around to be sure that we're getting the best coverage we can. So Jack Dibble will get back to us. I don't know when. Did he give us a date as to when he would get back to us about the results of his applications?
He said he'd be actually checking in with us in a couple of weeks, but I believe he said that June either 5th or 9th is the date that the proposals are due back to him. And he'll then come to meet with me shortly after that to give me to present the proposals, after which we then will put it on the agenda for approval.
And I trust that you guys were able to express to him the board's frustration with the shortcomings of our policy that
I think I was rather
bumped up
blunt.
against in the last.
I may have even made Ms. Helfler feel a little uncomfortable in the meeting. I didn't ask you that, but I was pretty blunt with our insurance broker.
Crystal clear.
He did make an interesting suggestion, which I might take him up on, and that is that he attend, whenever applicable, some of our crisis team meetings to provide information about liability and whatnot as it relates to our crisis response plans. He also suggested, and this is something which I'll have to talk to Ms. Hopeful about more, that he be a little involved, more involved than he is now, in some of the decision-making that might happen when it comes to issues that could have us invoke our policy. So I'll let everybody know about that once we talk more to Jack down the road. It was a good first meeting that I've had.
Okay.
Well, thank you for doing that, Scott. Really, you had mentioned it to me that you were going to talk to him about being more aggressive for us, and I would say that from a financial point of view, we appreciate that.
Okay, if no one has any other questions for Mark on finance and facilities, we'll move on to personnel and communication with Judy.
Okay. We did have a meeting since the last time we met, and so I have a few additions to the agenda, which I'll go over. Number 20 is the approval of compensation for revising the Bartle Elementary School report card. So you'll see staff under that, under number 20. Item 21 and 22 is also the appointment of staff for the Title I summer program for kindergarten. And let's see. Yeah, a lot of summer programs and staffing requirements are listed. Number 26 is the approval of staff to write the personal health and fitness curriculum, Ms. Simone and Mr. Sclafani. And then I'm happy to report that we do have some new hires on the agenda. Number 27 is the approval of a district school psychologist, Kimberly Nzolek. 28 is the approval of a special ed teacher, and I cannot pronounce his last name, James Mkarchek. Okay, we'll go with that. 29, the approval of a speech therapist, Frady Silverberg. 30, approval of an occupational therapist, Ida Shiner. And I think Scott wanted to talk about some of the references he has for those staff
Sure.
members.
Well, I do. Well, what I think would be helpful, since I want to reshift my focus to the occupational therapy position, and I'll explain why in a second. I guess what I'll do is just refer everybody on the board to the drive where I placed the reference quotes that I compiled for all the candidates. So you can take a look at them. We're very fortunate. We're looking to bring on board a number of child study team members here, support services like occupational therapy and speech therapy, and those are hard positions to fill, but we found some rock stars in our midst, one of whom is an relative internal candidate, somebody who replaced Ms. Frayne while she was out. That's our occupational therapist, Ida. You'll see, the board will see that I am recommending that she be placed on step 17 of the guide. That's high up on the guide. I am recognizing, as I do for most of our candidates, all of her years of experience. If you look at her resume, she has even more than 17 years of experience behind her in schools. I did ask Ms. Boudin, who ran the search, to give me a little background information about how we got to this point. I'll preface by saying that Ida is currently replacing Ms. Frayne. We hired her through a service that contracts out these support services. She's simply amazing, is what we've been told by the people around Irving and Bartle who've worked with her. You can read more about her background in the, on the reference sheet. Ms. Boudin told me that there were 17 total applicants for this position. 15 were actually qualified to be school-based OTs. Sometimes we get candidates, even for teaching positions, who don't have the right certification or qualifications. Of the 15, 6 had limited school-based experience. 4 of the group were solid, seasoned OTs with school-based experience. So these were people like Ida who had a lot of years of experience. Ida was one of the 4. The others didn't have either enough school-based experience or were brand new occupational therapists who didn't bring all that to the table. Upon reviewing these 4 finalists' credentials, the one thing that Ida had that the others didn't is that we know her work. So we know it's very, very high quality work. Much like when we have a maternity leave teacher spend a year with us, we get to see him or her in action. So was this the case, even though it was only about 4 months with Ida. The other, like I said, the other 3 candidates were close in experience level. So financially, I don't know if it would have made a difference. I would have, as I do in these cases, granted them their years of experience, lest we lose a really strong candidate like Ida. So just wanted to point that out because I know, I recognize that I'm asking a lot by putting her on the 17th step of the guide. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question actually about the summer programs. Is there something that would prevent us from letting parents know earlier about when the summer programs would be and whether or not their children might be in a position to be recommended? Because the information comes out really late compared to when parents register their children for camps. So if you want to get into certain camps, you have to register in February. Yeah. And so if you're not finding out until May, June about your child being recommended for summer program, and you've already registered your child for summer camp and paid for it, the likelihood is you're not going to be sending your child to summer program, which they might need to be in.
Do you think, is March an acceptable time frame, you think?
It would definitely be better than where we are right now, where we're notifying in May.
We have a better handle on a student's progress or regression later in the year, obviously, but
Right.
if I'm sure we could work something out. It makes sense. I would rather get more kids involved than not, so let's look at March as a late drop lead.
And understand,
Deadline.
of course, that, I mean, in terms of staffing, that could be worked out at a later date if parents sort of know in advance about the prospects of their child being invited to the program.
Okay.
Quick, oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Judy, you weren't completely done, were you?
No,
Yeah, so let's let
want me to
Judy,
go through
yeah.
first?
Why don't we
Okay.
let Judy finish going through, and then we'll do questions.
Okay. Scott, would you mind explaining number 31?
No.
The next one, number 31? 31.
Oh, forgive me.
That was the...
Yes, thank you. So number 31 is a recommendation to the board that we make an exception for an employee who had a very, very difficult life circumstance that has had her having to take several days from work off, and so we're recommending that we make an exception in this case. It's not a practice that we regularly follow to grant her these days that she's requesting back. I think that works.
And it sounds like it's language in the HPEA contract, correct?
There is language that we can refer to
And-
propose a
and law.
resolution, such as this.
The law's
Yes,
a good point.
and law, as Ms. Hofla pointed out.
Right, so it's not, it doesn't sound like in this case, we're just kind of like handing out sick days willy-nilly. It's based on,
Right, and it won't cost the district any more than it had.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Gallen, did you have a question?
We're going to let Judy
Oh, I'm
finish
sorry.
her whole report.
32, change in appointment of the Title III Parent Night teachers. 33, approval of compensation for re-registration, and you'll see the list of teachers and the per hourly contracted rate, the number of hours are listed. Oh, and I have an add-in, hold on. Number 34, approval of after-school program substitute site manager at Irving School. It is a recommendation to approve the appointment of Venice Road after-school program substitute site manager for Irving School at a rate of $26 per hour. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Judy. Does anyone have any questions for Judy?
I have a quick question. Forgive my ignorance. The Summer Holistic Intervention Program, is that what we always call it? Is that the math enrichment program? What is
Correct.
that?
Well, but we like to call it the holistic program because we now provide, we started providing last year yoga, meditation. We feel it would be helpful, especially during the summer months,
Michelle
to
and
provide
Lillian
the kids
would
more.
I think that's wonderful that we're not just sending kids to like a math camp or something, that they're doing that kind of stuff too. My dad would approve.
We feel it would be a better, more enriching experience for the kids to not just be immersed in academics all summer.
So, but this is the sort of get ahead in math, or stretch your skills in math program that we're
Yes.
talking about with
Yep.
with these wonderful supports added onto it. Okay.
And the board requested that we provide
Yes, and it's
for
free
no
students?
fee that extra service to the kids, and we're able to do it.
That's fantastic. So parents know they can call up and find out about this. I heard Sharice's comments.
Yep. Yeah, well,
Okay.
make sure we do it earlier in the school year.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a notice home yet about, this is for middle school students, as I understand things.
Correct, middle school.
Yeah, I mean, as a middle school parent, I haven't seen anything about this yet, so I hope that perhaps because we're just now approving stuff.
But wait, this isn't just the middle school program. This is all three.
Oh, wait, yeah.
This
No,
isn't.
wait.
I think maybe you guys are not communicating properly.
Title I Summer Holistic Intervention Program, SHIP.
Right,
Which
but there's
number?
Irving, Bartle, middle.
I'm sorry,
This isn't
yes.
just that middle school get ahead in math.
You're correct. So SHIP, is that the name for all of our summer academic programs?
Correct.
Yeah, so.
For kids who need remediation.
Ann was asking about that specific middle school thing that happened last year about.
In addition.
Is that now rolled into this?
Yes.
Or- Okay, so
Yes.
that's
I
been
see.
rolled into the overall summer program.
So all the academic summer programs fall under this SHIP label?
Correct.
Okay, and so they'll all include this yoga and other enriching activities?
And I have to say that the holistic part of it started at the middle school last year, and it spread itself through the other schools.
That's great. I just want to make sure I knew what it was. Thank you.
Okay. Did anybody else have any
Yeah, I
questions?
just want to comment. I'm super excited to see Frady Silverberg come back to district. She was here previously as a speech therapist, and she did a wonderful job. So glad to see her back. And I just want to state for the record that the cost of the occupational therapist is really still bothering me. That's all.
Great.
Okay, any other questions or concerns for Judy on personnel? All right, so we will move on to, it did bring up one question for me. the Bartle report card thing. Is the plan still next year to move to Genesis?
Correct.
So all those processes will change for next year?
Yes,
So
they will.
Okay.
Starting
And-
right away, 2017, September.
And so does the staff get trained on that?
So
At the
we've trained
beginning?
a number, well, we'll be training a number of teachers who are volunteering, actually 2 or 3. Chris, do you know if it's 2 or 3 by any chance? I think it's 3 in each building, who will be trained to turnkey to their peers. And then in September, we're going to offer a block of time when the teachers come back to train them on how to set up their grade book, do attendance. We're going to offer a voluntary training after school before the teachers leave in case they want to get a jump start on that. And then we'll probably have to offer a training to the parents as well.
That was my next question.
So it's in the works.
So Genesis will be a new, like now we use Power School for grades, and so the teachers do their grade books and where parents can log in and, you know, learn way more than they need to about what their kids have or
Don't
haven't
get
turned in.
obsessed, I'm
or what
just
their
warning you,
quiz-
be
Yeah, yeah.
careful.
What do you think?
Been there,
Away
done that,
from the
don't worry.
computer.
Well, what do you think about doing it during a back-to-school night? Was that not a good time to do something like that? A 15, 20-minute introduction, maybe a little...
I mean, it might be good because you've got everybody there. I mean, a captive audience is always good, not having to drag
If it could
people
happen.
out for another evening. I mean, you can offer it, you know, certainly. You can have somebody all night in room, whatever, do, you know, 3 or 4 rotating.
Maybe we could swing something before back-to-school night, since parents were already setting aside the night, and then another open forum for that later, like in October.
Right, and I think this has come up a few times at the board table, but in case anybody, just to refresh people's memory, personally, I was really excited about this because I hate Power School because it's Pearson. So anything we can do to take business away from Pearson makes me just enormously happy.
Amen.
And Genesis is a local New Jersey company, so they only work in New Jersey. It's, you know, run by New Jersey folks. It's specifically geared towards our state. So from what I understand, the parent interface is a lot better.
So the whole district
You're
is
not
switching?
giving your kids data to Pearson. Yes.
Oh, okay, the whole district. I thought you
Yeah,
meant
yeah,
just
yeah.
Bartle. Got it.
Right.
Yeah, I like not giving our data to Pearson. That sounds great.
Yeah. Makes me super happy. Okay, so if nobody has any other questions about personnel, we'll move on to policy with Anne.
All right, policy is exactly what we discussed at the workshop. I'm recommending that we vote to adopt these policies after second reading. So this will be our final vote on them, something I did not realize when I first started looking at policies. The second reading is the final reading. The only change is to the policy 5116, education of homeless children. Susan very kindly made the changes that we discussed last time. The liaison for homeless students will be the supervisor of educational services rather than the director. And if you look on page 2, under the heading, it's hard to recognize it as a heading, regarding disputes about the designation as a district of residence, some linguistic changes were made to that section to make it read more smoothly and be a little bit less duplicative. So that's all.
And I didn't go back and scour through all of them, but do you know, did we make sure that they're consistent in terms of just saying parent and not the whole parent, guardian, you know?
No, we did not. We did not do that. So let's do that right now. So parent is defined to include guardian.
Parent is defined in the beginning of our policy guide as every permutation of anyone that could possibly have authority over a student that may be in one of our buildings. So they did that specifically, so you don't have to list them all out
So
every
nice.
time. Every time you know you mean
Foster
to say
parent, guardian, okay.
Exactly. So
Yep.
it's very broadly defined in the beginning in the definitions for the policy guide. So
I'd like to-
anytime we're reviewing policies, that should be like our first thing that we ask Susan to do is just go through and anywhere it says parent, make sure it only says parent and not the whole.
So I guess I will read in that I'd like to recommend we adopt 5116 with the change that every instance of parent or guardian is changed to parent. I will prepare an edited version to give to Susan, although I think she's perfectly capable of just removing the word herself. I have not looked at the other policies for parent versus guardian. Let me see. Can I recommend that we adopt them with the caveat
absolutely.
that we'll change the parent-guardian language? Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't change the meaning or anything.
Yeah,
I think
no.
as we should just start doing it as a matter of course as we go through the policies, because I mean, depending on when they were adopted, it could be any permutation of that string of possible words.
I remember there was an issue about student versus pupil as well, but I see that as less interesting because clearly we know what student and what pupil means, so it doesn't have to be consistent in my view.
Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Did anybody
Thank you.
have any questions or concerns about any of the policies that we've now talked about like 6 times? They're just
Okay. So bored of them all.
So we'll move on to equity and excellence. Sharice, do you have anything?
I have nothing. We have not met yet, and we are waiting on a new meeting for the discipline committee.
Okay. And when do you think that might be?
There were just some difficulties with scheduling it. Scott, do we have a date yet for the discipline?
We do, just give me a second and I'll pull it up. I believe it's May 30th, 4:30 PM.
Okay.
So we'll be able
yes,
to
I'm
accommodate
sorry.
people who can't make
Yes.
it on time. The kids have all confirmed they could be there.
Right, 4:30 PM, which I really appreciate the teachers and administrators working with me so that I can be there on time. So that's really the only thing. We have the discipline study group meeting coming up. You know, hopefully we will have some more discussion. We should be meeting with Jen Knapp. I have to nail down a date for us to meet for the final review of the comprehensive equity plan, which is just an update that gets submitted to Trenton to let them know how we're doing with meeting our goals. Overall, it seems that we're doing really well with addressing the specific areas that were identified by the district last year. And last time we met, we did go through with Jen some of the areas that we thought needed to be looked at again within that comprehensive equity plan. So hopefully by that next meeting, we'll have more concrete information.
Great. All right. Thanks, Sharice. Does anybody have any questions for Sharice? Okay. I'm going to skip right by public because we don't have any public. So we'll go straight to our board action items. So first, Michelle, could you move the curriculum and instruction items?
I would like to move curriculum and instruction items sorry, still scrolling.
Yeah, me too. Hold on. Hold up there.
Numbers 1 through 4. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I will just mention that there has been a lot of discussion in closed session about the HIP reports and Marches. So this month we have both March and April's on the agenda, and that's because when we got the March one, there were lots of questions, there were lots of concerns, there's been a lot of conversation. And the board has had real concerns and wanted clarification on how the HIB process just itself, what the follow-through is on HIBs, not only for the students that may be feeling aggressed upon, but also for the students who are doing the reported aggressing. I think I can speak for just about everybody in saying that we're concerned for all of those children, that if a student is having a HIB filed against them, we want to know what's going on with that student. We want to know that that student is being provided with services, and that student's need is being met just as the student's needs are being met that is filing the HIB. So I feel like we've gotten a lot of clarification on the process, but that it's going to be an ongoing process, that we're not done yet. So both in terms of the HIB reports and discipline reports that Dr. Taylor gives us on a monthly basis, we continually refine how we receive that information, what information we get in terms of the students, in terms of the scenarios, in terms of what the response is to those situations. So, and this is very much a part of the work that Sharice is doing in the Equity and Excellence Committee, and it's going to take time. It takes time to get to the point where systems work the way they do, and if you want to change those systems, it takes time to change those systems as well. So I feel pretty comfortable that we're on our way to doing that, and that we're, both sides are open and receptive to having the conversation, which is huge. I mean, just breaking through some of those barriers that's taken years. I mean, when we first tried to have these conversations on the board years ago, I've told many board members this, there was not a receptivity to it. There was no receptivity to talking about how students, some students in this district are treated, both by their peers and by staff. So I'm really glad that we're where we are. Very often the conversations are uncomfortable, and we don't agree, and we see things differently, and it's difficult, but I'm really glad that everybody is engaging in the conversation, and that's it. That's what I wanted to say.
Can I make a follow-up?
Sure, of course.
I think it might be important for parents to know that there's a number of concerns we've had, as Darcy said. One of quite a few concerns has to do with the treatment of disabled students and whether our discipline policies and our HIB policies are sensitive to the needs of those students in particular. So I just want to point out for any parents who might be listening to this fascinating board meeting that we do have that in our sights as an area of concern, and we are working hard on that. So thank you.
And also I think as part of that we want to know how those parents are brought into the process.
Yes.
So the parents of the students on, again, either side of that equation. So I think all those pieces are really important. It's really important that the parents of students that are having difficulty in our schools relating to their peers, whichever side of that equation they're on, that we're working with those parents. We're working together with those parents to make the school environment as comfortable and happy and healthy for those kids as possible. So with that, Linda, can we have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yeah, so I am going to say yes for 1, 3, and 4, and abstain from 2, as I still don't feel comfortable voting on that.
Ms. Cimarosti?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
I'm going to be a 1, 3, and 4 yes, and a no on 2.
Ms. McFadden-DiNicola?
I'm also going to abstain on number 2 and vote yes on 1, 3, and 4.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Abstain on 2 and yes on the remaining.
Ms. Richardson?
Abstaining on 2 and yes on the others.
Mr. Roslowitz?
No on number 2 and yes on the remainder.
Number 2 has failed to pass.
Okay. All right, so we will move on to Finance and Facilities with Mark.
Yeah, I'm going to move numbers 1 through 19. I believe it goes to 19.
Does it go to 19?
Yes, 1 through 19.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Who got to it first? Is there any discussion?
Can I just ask real quickly about the roof repairs? Were those completed, or are those still to be done?
No, they still have to be done.
Okay. And was that was just a limited area, like an emergency repair?
It's not an emergency repair. It's been ongoing. It's kind of a chronic problem area that a number of different remedies have been attempted, and the problem just keeps recurring. So it's sometimes hard to find out exactly the cause of a specific leak because water can travel.
Travels, yeah.
So this is another remedy that we are hoping will be more extensive, comprehensive.
Thank you.
I have a question, and tell me whether I can ask this. This is about the owls, because I wasn't here last week. I know the owls have been completed, and they look fantastic. They look amazing. First of all, are they fully paid for now?
No.
I'm not. I'll ask Ms. Hopla.
Meaning, has the artist been? He's
Yes.
received his payment,
The
correct?
artist has been paid. He was paid a deposit out of district funds, which was approved in April, I believe, and the remaining funds were paid out of the student fund account.
Right, and then we have
The
a certain amount to make.
The GoFundMe collections.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Okay. So did we do a first and a second? I lost track of where we were.
We did first and second.
Okay.
Yeah, now
So
roll
Linda,
call.
is there any other discussion about finance? Nope. All right. So Linda, could we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simoresti?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Ms. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Roslowitz?
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to personnel and communication. Judy, could you move those items for us, please?
Yes, I'd like to move items 1 through 34.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
Is there any discussion? No? Seeing none, Linda, could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes, no on 30, but yes on everything else.
Ms. Simoresti?
Yes?
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Going to vote no on 30 and yes on everything else.
I think you have to abstain on 33.
Yeah. Oh, we do.
Oh, I do, don't
So many of them.
And I abstain on 33 for those 4 3/4 hours. Absolutely.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
Yes.
Ms. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Roslowitz?
No on 30, abstain on 34, and yes on the remainder.
Is there a 34?
Yeah, that was.
Oh, we did that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's the site manager.
Right.
So,
Okay. So we'll move on to policy. Anne, could you move those items, please?
Yes, I'd like to move that we adopt the 5 policies listed here.
Okie dokie. Can we get a second?
Second. Oops.
Is there any discussion? Everybody sick of talking about these policies?
We're good.
Okay. Linda, could we have a roll call?
Ms. Byer?
Yes.
Ms. Simoresti?
Yes?
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Magaziner?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola?
Yes.
Ms. Pietrobono?
yes.
Ms. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Roslowitz?
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to our liaison reports. Do you have anything via Mr. Chen for us?
Nope, not until June 6th. That's the next meeting.
June 6th. Okay, great. Michelle, what's going on? HBTV,
I have
public
not-
information, probably in a weird spot with...
Exactly. So Bureau of Public Information has not met, and the HBTV also has not been in contact, so.
Okay. And Scott, you're still doing your monthly sessions with Gary, or no? Is that still happening?
Yeah,
or-
we have not had a meeting in a while, but
No.
we are. I think our next meeting is actually Wednesday, the 8th. No, I'm sorry, Wednesday. Hang in there. Let me get back to you on that. I have it somewhere in my calendar.
All right. Because just as a reminder, I don't know if you guys, I think everybody knows that usually once a month, right? Scott
Correct.
does an interview
We try.
with Gary Leslie from HBTV that goes up on the, do we put those, we don't link to that on the website, do we?
No, they're just internal calendar meetings. I mean, I could if,
No, I mean like the videos, the.
oh, forgive me, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
To
Is
the-
that- Do we link to it on our website?
On our
Yeah, it's up
website,
there?
it should be on
Yeah.
the front page.
All right.
Yep.
All righty. Rob, I know you have lots for us from the Ed Foundation.
The next meeting is tomorrow night, which I will be attending. And just to remind folks, I don't think we have a meeting between now and June 3rd. So June 3rd is the night of the big Ed Foundation fundraiser. So we will be reporting on that after the fact.
And this would be a good time to remind everybody about our contribution. I don't know if you've heard back from everybody or.
For those of you who have not responded to me, I think there's maybe 1 or 2, but I'm pretty sure that I can count on you. The board typically each year does support the fundraiser with an ad in their journal, and so we hopefully will be doing that once again this year. So I just need everybody to weigh in And yes. Right, to weigh in and let me know yes, and do what you need to do.
And it's the board members personally, not the Board
Board.
of
Yeah,
Education.
yeah, yeah.
Right,
So,
that's,
just to be
that is a
clear,
good point. This
to be
is
clear.
coming out of our
Pockets.
pockets.
Our Baba
So,
Ganoush
well,
funds.
yeah.
Well, as
Because
one
we
of the,
believe.
as one of the board members who has not gotten back to you, but I just did read the emails for a while ago. I will answer in the affirmative that I will give a personal donation to our pool.
I wasn't saying any names.
I will fess up. Not a problem.
All right, thanks, Rob. So we'll move on to Judy. Anything from the Commission for Universal Access?
I was not able to attend the meeting, so can I report back next time?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Scott, anything via Suzanne from the library?
Not until May 25th.
Okay. And shared services. Okay, I've been the shared services liaison for the last year and a half. I finally got to go to a meeting. So excited.
As good as you dreamed.
Congratulations.
It was everything I hoped for and more.
What did you wear?
Linda was good enough to put together a list of all of the services that we do share with the borough, and I have to say, everyone was very impressed with us that we came, that I came that prepared. They were kind of like, kind of took the wind out of our sails. Well, I just figured it would be really boring to sit there and have all these conversations about things like these great ideas that people had that we already do. So like, let's get the list out. And it's a pretty good list of services that we do already share. Actually, I'll share that. I should have done that. I'll share that with everybody just so, you can peruse it for fun some afternoon. But a few things that did come up that we aren't doing that, may be fruitful, may not be. One was that we share our custodial services with the borough. So Temco, right? It's Temco, right?
Yes.
Temco, do they have their own person? Is that how it works? There's a Temco employee that does the cleaning for the borough buildings. So that's one service that we share. And it came up that somehow the library did not get in on that when that happened. So I believe that we're going to start looking into adding the library into that pool with Temco. So there may be some cost savings there, either for the on the borough side. So that's great. And then there was a lot of discussion about what we've been talking about a lot at the board is what do we do for these families that we have, the homeless families. So there were lots of ideas thrown about of possible ways that we could get services. And you were having a meeting, right? You had a meeting with the borough's social worker?
It was canceled today.
Sad face.
We're rescheduling, hopefully for the next couple of weeks.
Let's see, there was one other thing. What was the one other thing? I'm not thinking of what the one other thing was. But so there were some... the IT, that was the one. Thank you very much. So the other one was the borough is right now looking for a new service provider for their telecommunications stuff. And Linda at the same time we're doing that at the district level, although it seems like our timeline may be a lot shorter than what their timeline is. So I'm not quite sure if it's gonna mesh, but if nothing else, there's some conversation going on between the district and the borough in terms of telecommunication services. So maybe something will be able to happen there, maybe not, maybe this year, maybe at some point in the future. So those were a few of the things that came up in that meeting, but it seems like we're going to meet a little bit more regularly. So hopefully over the next few months, I'll have more to report back to everybody. Ruth, do you have anything for us from CPAC?
No, unfortunately.
No meetings?
We have
Okay.
not met.
And Charisse, anything from POSOC?
Last meeting was more of a social, sort of debriefing. So there isn't really anything to report from that. We have the next meeting coming up on June the 1st at 7 p.m. at the Bartle School Media Center. We'll be joined by Ms. Yan Chu, who's the math interventionist at the middle school, and she'll be coming to give us an update on the programs that she's been running and the progress that she's seeing with the students. And other than that, Scott did have a phone call from HP Plastic from Lucinda to begin discussions about a celebratory year celebrating the anniversary of the integration of the schools.
Oh, cool.
Which it's sort of a 3-year period, which begins technically next year.
Cool. I like that. All right, thanks, Sharice. Anne, do you have anything from Human Relations?
No, we are meeting to Wednesday.
Wednesday. All right, awesome. We'll talk about that at our next meeting then. Mark, Board of Health?
No, I didn't attend because the meeting clashed with the negotiations meeting last week. The next meeting is, I believe, on June 6th,
Okay.
so I will be there.
Okay, thanks. Rob, anything from the Green Team?
There was a great report last week, if you were up for the video, but in relation to the owls, the GoFundMe page is still looking for donations. That's HPHS Trees. Right now they're at $6,609. Her goal is $8,000.
Cool. Okay, so that brings us to me, delegate to the New Jersey School Boards Association. And we talked about this a little bit last week, the two resolutions that are going to be voted on this Saturday at the Delegate Assembly. Did anybody get a chance to peruse them? Mark's like, maybe not. So the first one is, let's see. I mean, the first one is really pretty straightforward. That was the Waterford Township one about the being able to hire an interim superintendent or a shared superintendent, which I can't see how anyone. I don't have any objections to that. I don't know.
What's the possible downside? Is there one? I can't really think of.
I can't see a downside to it, quite honestly. School board's recommendation was to approve it with just some like slightly tweaked language, so I didn't have a problem with that one. I didn't see it as particularly controversial. The other one, on the other hand, is a lot trickier. And I feel like I don't really have a sense of how this one is going to play out at the Delegate Assembly. And I feel a bit responsible, I think, for it, because this was based on our resolution about all the charter expansions, and the Edison Board was good enough to support us in that resolution and adopt that resolution, as were numerous other boards throughout Middlesex and Somerset counties. But then somehow for the Delegate Assembly, it morphed into this thing saying that New Jersey charter schools and high-quality suburban districts erode the operations of public education by draining badly needed financial resources. And I'm not.
Can't get behind the idea that we need to divide ourselves into suburban, urban, rural.
Exactly. And I mean, my hope is that that's how the conversation would go at the Delegate Assembly, but if it doesn't, y'all know me.
We trust you.
Y'all know it's going to be very hard for me to sit quietly by for that conversation.
Please don't sit quietly by for that conversation.
So, and the other thing that kind of troubles me about it is a lot of the explanation, when New Jersey School Boards gets these, they have this discussion section, and then they have the statement of reasons and the recommendation. I mean, school boards is just flat out recommending that the resolution be opposed. Perhaps people will just get up and be like, yep, I oppose this, and that'll be it, we'll vote, and it'll be a done deal. But if there is lengthy conversation about it, I would like to get up and kind of join that conversation. And part of what I didn't like about school boards' write-up of it is that they're kind of going with this idea that, charter schools are public schools, and, we can't differentiate between any public schools. And, I think there's enough evidence out there at this point that that's really just not the case. There are lots of ways in which charter schools are not public schools, and they are having the effect of draining resources from public education, from traditional public schools. So, I mean, maybe there need to be some language tweaks there, but there's no way to get around the fact that they drain needed resources from traditional public schools, and that traditional public schools right now under this administration are underfunded. So I think you all have a pretty good sense of, if needed, where I would go with that conversation, and I think we're all pretty comfortable opposing the language as it is written. And, I need to also then do that as delicately as possible with our, neighboring district who, is supporting us not only in this resolution, but also supporting us in our appeal of Hatikva. So it's a little bit of a dance that needs to be done here. So I will do that dance as delicately as possible.
You're a good dancer.
The diplomacy dance.
The diplomacy dance, exactly. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about that? No. Rob, anything for Middlesex County School Boards?
Not this evening.
Okay. I was tempted for a millisecond. They sent out an email a month or so ago looking for different various board positions for the Middlesex School Boards Association. And I have that kind of itchy volunteer finger, like me, nah, but I restrained myself, figuring I have more than enough to do. I don't need to also become more active in the Middlesex County School Boards Association, so I refrained from raising my hand for that, and I think that was probably the best decision. I don't have anything in particular for my president's report, so does anybody have anything for old business? No, the only thing I'll bring up is the one thing that we've kind of been tossing around now for the last few meetings under old business was the idea of doing this book club, book study, and we seem to have hit a bit of a block that I wasn't anticipating. I guess maybe I wasn't communicating well enough with Scott about the way I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this as not just something that would be an exercise that the board would undertake, but that it would be together with the administration and any teachers that wanted to participate and any community members, and we seem to have hit a snag in making this go outside of the board. So if everybody's okay with it, I kind of want to just table the idea for now until we can maybe have a little bit more discussion about what it would look like and who would participate, and pick it up maybe in a couple of months, perhaps. I think maybe the timing wasn't terribly good, trying to take this on while we have lots of other things going on in the middle of negotiations, and maybe we just need a couple months to step back from the idea and revisit. So that is what I'm thinking we will do with that idea for right now. Unless anybody has any other.
I don't have any good ideas about resolving the situation, but I hope we do go back to it.
Yeah,
I think it's just essential that we talk with staff about it. I don't know how that works, how that looks in practice, but I don't think any of us want to just be sitting around talking amongst ourselves.
Exactly.
With sort of no input from the people who are on the ground doing the work and sort of know what's realistic and what's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but recognizing that we can't compel.
Oh, of course not. It would be voluntary. Of course. Of course we would. I certainly wouldn't support compelling staff to come. Yeah.
Maybe if we have cookies.
Cookies.
Well, cookies, yeah. Maybe cookies would do it.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Or
kind of
nuts.
looking at it as a, extension of the, strategic plan. I mean, no one was forced to participate in the strategic plan, but we did have administrators and staff and, community members that participated because we put it out to them, and if they wanted to participate, they could. I'm kind of seeing it as the same kind of thing, but perhaps I didn't make that clear enough from the get-go, so we'll try to reboot it with more clear ideas from the beginning and see where we get. So does anybody have anything for new business? Nope. Okay. We have no public, so there's no public comment. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good night, everybody.